If you think the baby shower was the worst thing my alpha ever did to me, you're wrong, because humiliation is loud. But regret is quiet, and it starts at your own front door. Before we continue, if you haven't watched part 1, the baby shower, the divorce papers, the fake paternity test, the public humiliation, pause this video and check our channel first. Trust me, it hits harder when you know how badly he broke me. Now, let's continue. Adrian still had a key. He shouldn't have. But old habits cling like ghosts. The lock clicked. The door opened. And he froze. There was another alpha scent in my house. Not strong. Not aggressive. Not territorial. Just present. Clean. Warm. Steady. Like someone who didn't need to prove anything. His jaw tightened instantly. I thought you said you were alone. I didn't look up from where I was rocking our son. I am. The lie was soft, controlled, because alone doesn't mean untouched. He stepped inside slowly, shutting the door behind him. His eyes scanned everything. The nursery door was open. The crib had been moved closer to the window. New curtains, soft blue instead of gray. There were fresh flowers on the dining table. Not roses, peonies. He noticed. Adrian notices everything when it's too late. Who's been here? He asked quietly. I adjusted the baby's blanket. You don't live here anymore. The silence that followed felt heavier than the divorce papers he once shoved into my shaking hands. His scent shifted. Jealousy, confusion, possessive instinct fighting logic. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel his warmth. Close enough that once upon a time, I would have leaned into him. Now I didn't move. You're seeing someone. It wasn't a question. I finally looked up at him. And for the first time since the baby shower, I didn't look broken. I'm healing. That hurt him more than any accusation. The baby stirred in my arms. Adrian instinctively reached out. But our son didn't wake fully. He just turned his face toward the doorway and smiled. Adrian noticed that too. That small detail. That tiny shift. His jaw clenched. Why does he smell different? He whispered. I held his gaze steadily. Because this house smells like peace now. His control cracked for a second. Just a second. Then, the doorbell rang. Once. Calm. Confident. Not impatient. Adrian's eyes snapped toward the sound. I stood slowly, cradling our son against my chest. Are you expecting someone? He asked. Yes. I walked past him. He didn't stop me, but he followed. Of course he did. I opened the door, and there he was, tall, composed, not smiling arrogantly, just steady. His eyes softened when he saw me. Then they lowered respectfully to my son. Ready? He asked gently. 2 words. That was all. But the scent deepened instantly. Protective. Grounded. Certain. Adrian stepped forward. Who are you? The new alpha didn't answer immediately. He looked at me first, as if waiting for permission. I nodded slightly. Only then did he speak. My name is Daniel. Adrian's breathing changed, because Daniel wasn't just any alpha. Daniel Vale, corporate rival, the one who exposed Celeste, the one who ran the real paternity test, the one who stood beside me when the world watched me break. And now, he was standing at my door. Adrian's voice dropped lower. What are you doing here? Daniel didn't raise his voice, didn't flare his scent, didn't compete. I'm taking them to lunch. Them. Not him. Not the baby. Adrian's composure slipped just enough for me to see it. You're not his husband, he said sharply. I met his eyes. No. I shifted our son higher in my arms. But you're not either. The silence that followed felt like a courtroom verdict. Adrian looked at the baby, then at Daniel, then back at me. And for the first time since he handed me those divorce papers in front of everyone, he looked afraid. Daniel stepped slightly closer, not touching me, just enough to shield without claiming. Subtle, natural, effortless. Adrian noticed that too. Of course he did. Co-parenting doesn't give you control over my life, I said quietly. And divorce doesn't give you ownership over my loneliness. Daniel extended his hand. Not to Adrian. To me. Shall we? I placed my hand in his. And Adrian watched. Watched as I stepped past him. Watched as his son reached instinctively toward Daniel's voice. Watched as the door closed between us. And for the first time, he was the one standing alone. If humiliation is loud, regret is silent, and it had just walked into his chest. Adrian didn't follow us, but he didn't leave either. He stood outside the house for almost 10 minutes after we drove away, because something in his chest refused to accept what his eyes had just seen. Daniel Vale, at my door, holding my hand, like it was natural, like it belonged there. Lunch wasn't romantic. That made it worse. Daniel didn't try to impress me. He didn't flirt. He didn't touch me unnecessarily. He just paid attention. When the baby stirred, Daniel adjusted the stroller before I could. When I reached for water, it was already there. When I hesitated reading the menu, he quietly said, "You liked the salmon last time." Last time. He remembered. And that small detail felt more intimate than any heated confession. Across the restaurant window, I noticed something. A familiar black car parked across the street. Adrian's. He wasn't subtle. He was spiraling. That evening he showed up again. This time without using the key. He knocked. I appreciated that. When I opened the door, his eyes scanned behind me immediately, looking for Daniel. "He was just dropping us off," I said calmly. His jaw tightened. "You didn't answer my calls." "I was at lunch. With him." Not a question. I didn't deny it. Adrian stepped inside slowly. "I told you I wanted to fix this." "You rescinded the divorce," I corrected softly. "That's not the same thing." His scent flared. Not aggressive. Not dominant. Insecure. That was new. "You're moving on already?" he asked. I held his gaze. "You moved on while I was pregnant." The words landed clean. No shouting. No trembling. No tears. Just truth. And somehow that hurt him more than if I had screamed. The baby began fussing from the nursery. Adrian instinctively moved toward the sound. But I reached the crib first. I lifted our son gently. He calmed almost immediately. Adrian watched. Something dark flickered in his eyes. "Does he—" He hesitated. "Does he react like that around him too?" There it was. The real question. Not about me. About replacement. "Yes," I answered honestly. Adrian swallowed. And for the first time he looked smaller. 2 days later, we had the baby's first pediatric follow-up. Adrian insisted on coming. Daniel didn't. He simply texted, "Let me know if you need anything." No pressure. No claim. Just presence. At the clinic, the nurse smiled warmly. "Dad, you can hold him while we check vitals." She looked at Adrian. Then at Daniel's name written under emergency contact on the form. She blinked. "Oh, sorry. I thought." I didn't correct her immediately. Adrian noticed that too. The hesitation. The possibility. The world adjusting. He held our son stiffly during the checkup. Like he was afraid of doing something wrong. And maybe he was. Because fatherhood isn't biology. It's consistency. And consistency had not been his strength. Outside the clinic, Adrian finally snapped. "You put his name as emergency contact? You weren't answering your phone last week," I replied. He had no response. Because it was true. He had been in a board meeting. And Daniel had been at my door with medicine when the baby developed a fever. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "You're replacing me." The accusation sounded hollow. I shook my head slowly. No. I stepped closer. You replaced yourself. That was the crack. The first real one. His breath hitched. Just slightly. Just enough. And I saw it. Fear. Not of losing control. Not of losing pride. But of losing us. That night, Daniel came by again. This time with a small humidifier the pediatrician recommended. He set it up quietly. He didn't sit too close. Didn't overstay. Before leaving, he looked at me and asked softly, "Are you sleeping at all?" I smiled faintly. "Not much." He nodded once. "Call me if you need help. Even if it's 3 a.m. No dramatic declaration. No possessive display. Just certainty." When he left, I closed the door gently. And through the window, I saw Adrian across the street again. Watching. He had witnessed everything. The ease. The calm. The difference. And for the first time since the baby shower, he wasn't angry. He was panicking. Because love isn't loud. But replacement is devastatingly quiet. And Adrian was beginning to understand something terrifying. He could fight Daniel. He could compete with another alpha. But he couldn't compete with peace. The charity gala invitation arrived 3 days later. Corporate. Public. High profile. Adrian had originally planned to attend with me. Before the divorce. Before the humiliation. Before he decided I was disposable. Now, I was still invited. Just not as his spouse. Adrian assumed I wouldn't go. He underestimated me again. Daniel didn't ask to accompany me. He simply said, "If you'd like company, I'm available." No pressure. No claiming. That confidence alone made the decision easy. The ballroom was almost painfully familiar. Crystal lights. Whispers. Judging eyes. The same type of room where Adrian once handed me divorce papers. Only this time, I walked in calm. Baby not with me. Chin lifted. Daniel beside me. Not touching. Not flaunting. Just present. And people noticed. The murmurs started immediately. "Is that Daniel Vale? With him? I thought he was divorced. Isn't that Adrian's?" Adrian saw us before we saw him. His expression didn't change, but his glass tightened in his grip. We hadn't even reached the center floor when it happened. One of the board members approached with a polite smile. "Mr. Vale," he greeted Daniel warmly. Then he turned to me. "And you must be his husband." Silence. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just long enough. Adrian was close enough to hear. Daniel didn't correct him. He looked at me instead. Waiting. Giving me control. I smiled softly. "Yes." One word. Adrian inhaled sharply. The board member nodded approvingly. "You make a striking pair." Daniel's hand moved lightly to the small of my back. Not possessive. Just natural. Adrian crossed the floor in 3 strides. "That's not accurate," he said coolly. The board member blinked. "I'm sorry. He's my ex-spouse." The emphasis was intentional. I tilted my head slightly. "Yes." I met Adrian's gaze calmly. "You divorced me." The reminder landed publicly. People were listening now. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You're misleading people." I stepped closer. Lowered my voice just enough to be intimate but still audible. "I'm not correcting assumptions anymore." Savage. Clean. Precise. A flicker of shock passed through his eyes. "You're doing this on purpose." I held his gaze steadily. "You did worse on purpose." That one hurt. Another guest approached Daniel. "Mr. Vale, your Omega is stunning." "Omega?" Adrian flinched visibly. Daniel glanced at me again. Always that silent permission. I gave a small smile. "Thank you." I didn't deny it. Adrian's composure cracked. "He's not married." Daniel finally spoke. Calm. Controlled. "Neither are you." Silence dropped like a curtain. Adrian looked between us. Between the ease, the stability, the lack of chaos. And something in his chest started collapsing. Later, during the charity speech, the host thanked major donors. Daniel Vale and his family. Family. The camera panned briefly toward us. Daniel didn't react. I didn't react. Adrian did. Because for the first time, he wasn't standing beside me. He wasn't the one people associated with me. He wasn't the center. He was watching. After the applause, Adrian cornered me near the balcony. "Do you enjoy humiliating me?" he demanded quietly. I looked out at the city lights. "You handed me divorce papers at my baby shower." I turned slowly. "You humiliated yourself." He ran a frustrated hand through his hair. "You're letting people think you belong to him." I stepped closer. Close enough that my scent brushed against his. Controlled. Unshaken. "I don't belong to anyone." Pause. "But I'm not yours anymore." That was the final cut. Clean. No screaming. No tears. Just truth. Inside the ballroom, someone called Daniel's name. He looked over. Our eyes met across the room. He didn't look threatened. He didn't look jealous. He looked certain. Adrian followed my gaze. And for the first time, he understood something terrifying. Daniel wasn't trying to replace him. He already was. As we left the gala together, cameras flashed lightly at the entrance. "Mr. Vale, sir, is this your husband?" Daniel looked at me again. Always that silent choice. I didn't hesitate this time. Yes. Adrian was still inside. But he saw it. Through the glass doors. He saw me choose. And this time, there were witnesses. Adrian insisted on coming early that Saturday. "It's my custody weekend," he said over the phone. It wasn't. But I let him come anyway. Because some lessons are better learned in person. Daniel was already there. Not hovering. Not imposing. He was kneeling on the living room floor, assembling the new activity Matt, the pediatrician, recommended. Sleeves rolled. Focused. Patient. Our son was on his stomach nearby, making soft babbling sounds. Adrian froze the moment he stepped inside. Daniel didn't stand immediately. He just glanced up calmly. Morning. No tension. No challenge. That made it worse. Adrian stepped inside slowly. "You didn't tell me he'd be here." I adjusted the bottle in my hand. "You didn't ask." Savage. Simple. Adrian's jaw tightened. He walked toward the baby and crouched. "Hey, little man." His voice softened automatically. Our son turned at the sound. For a second, hope flickered in Adrian's eyes. Then, the baby's gaze shifted. Past him. Toward Daniel. And he smiled. Wide, bright, excited. Daniel blinked, surprised. "Hey there," he murmured softly. He didn't reach first. He waited. The baby rolled awkwardly, tiny hands stretching forward. Not toward Adrian. Toward Daniel. The air changed. Adrian's scent spiked immediately. Sharp. Possessive. Unstable. I watched silently. Daniel hesitated. "Is it okay?" he asked me quietly. He always asked. Yes. That was enough. He lifted the baby gently. Secure. Natural. And our son settled against his chest like he belonged there. No crying. No fussing. Just calm. Adrian stood slowly. Too slowly. "That's not appropriate," he said tightly. Daniel didn't argue. Didn't flare his scent. He reached for me. That sentence was quiet, but devastating. Adrian looked at me. "Are you encouraging this?" I met his gaze evenly. "I encourage stability." That one cut deep. The baby grabbed Daniel's shirt collar and laughed. Actually laughed. That soft, breathy giggle he had only started making recently. Adrian had never heard it up close. He swallowed. "He doesn't even know him." Daniel didn't react. I did. He knows who shows up. Silence. Adrian's composure cracked visibly this time. His shoulders tensed. His breathing shifted. I'm his father. Yes. I stepped closer. And you divorced his mother. There it was. The truth that keeps circling back. Adrian ran a frustrated hand through his hair. You're pushing him towards someone else. I tilted my head slightly. You pushed us away. The baby nestled his face into Daniel's chest. Content. Safe. Daniel didn't look triumphant. He looked careful. He adjusted the baby's position gently, supporting his neck instinctively. Adrian noticed that too. Every detail. Every ease. Everything he hadn't practiced. The baby reached up suddenly and tugged Daniel's collar down, pressing his small forehead against Daniel's jaw. Claiming contact, Adrian inhaled sharply. That wasn't instinct. That was bonding. Primal. Unfiltered. And for the first time, Adrian looked afraid. Not angry. Afraid. Give him to me, Adrian said abruptly. Daniel looked at me first. Always. I nodded. Daniel carefully transferred the baby into Adrian's arms. But something was different. Our son shifted. Restless. Confused. Not crying. But not settling either. Adrian bounced him slightly. Hey. Hey. It's okay. The baby fussed. Small whimper. Adrian's scent spiked harder. I stepped forward. Relax. I am relaxed, he snapped. The baby started crying. Not loud, but enough. Daniel stepped back. Didn't interfere. Adrian's grip tightened unconsciously. Adrian. My voice sharpened slightly. He exhaled, trying to steady himself. The baby continued fussing. Daniel spoke gently from behind. Support his back more. Instinctively, Adrian adjusted. The baby's crying softened. Daniel didn't move closer. Didn't claim credit. He just stood there, calm. And that calmness made everything worse. When the baby finally settled, Adrian didn't look relieved. He looked shaken, because fatherhood wasn't automatic. It required presence, consistency, patience, things he had only started learning after the divorce. Daniel had been learning them quietly, without claiming title, without demanding recognition. Later, as Daniel prepared to leave, the baby started fussing again. Daniel stepped toward the door. See you tomorrow, he said gently. The baby reached out, tiny fingers stretching desperately, toward him, not Adrian, toward Daniel. Adrian saw it, and this time, there was no denial left, just reality. You're replacing me, he whispered hoarsely. Daniel paused at the doorway. He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because replacement doesn't announce itself. It grows in absence. After Daniel left, Adrian stood in the center of the living room, looking at the upgraded nursery, the new toys, the peaceful home. You don't love him, he said suddenly. I met his gaze. Love isn't loud anymore. Silence. You still love me, he tried. That one almost made me smile. I respect myself more. And that was the moment something in him truly broke. Because jealousy can be fought. Competition can be won. But self-respect doesn't negotiate. As he left that afternoon, he didn't slam the door. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He looked back once. At me. At the nursery. At the empty space Daniel had just stood in. And for the first time, he looked like a man who realized he might actually lose everything. Not publicly. Not dramatically. But quietly. The way it hurts most. Adrian didn't wait a week. He didn't wait a day. He waited 12 hours. And then he made the worst decision of his life. It happened during Daniel's company family brunch. Public. Respectable. Full of executives, partners, quiet investors. I wasn't hidden. Daniel never hid me. I stood beside him openly, our son in my arms, sunlight hitting the balcony glass. People were already whispering, not scandal, not suspicion, approval, that kind of approval Adrian used to receive automatically. Daniel's mother approached me first. Warm smile, measured presence. You must be the Omega I've heard about. I didn't tense. I didn't brace. Yes. She looked at the baby, then at Daniel, then back at me, and nodded. Good. Just that. Good. Acceptance without interrogation. Adrian had never defended me that easily. The speech began shortly after. Daniel wasn't boasting. He was talking about expansion, community support, family stability. And then he said it. Everything I build now, I build with clarity. His hand rested lightly at my back. Not claiming, not performing, just steady. And then, the doors opened. Hard, uncontrolled. Adrian. He didn't belong there. Everyone turned. Daniel's security moved subtly, but Daniel lifted a hand. Let him. Adrian walked straight toward us. Eyes locked on me. You're parading him around now? He demanded. No greeting. No civility. Desperation. That's what desperation sounds like. I didn't flinch. You're trespassing. His laugh was sharp. You think this is funny? No. I shifted the baby slightly in my arms. I think it's predictable. Murmurs spread. Executives whispering. Phones slightly raised. Adrian noticed. And instead of calming, he escalated. You're using my son to replace me. There it was. The public accusation. Daniel stepped forward slightly. Not aggressive. Just present. Adrian pointed at him. You think you can step into my role? Daniel didn't react emotionally. He asked something worse. Which role? Silence dropped. Adrian blinked. What? Daniel's voice remained calm. Provider? Protector? Husband? Father? Each word landed like a measured strike. Which one were you consistent in? The room felt smaller. Adrian's breathing grew heavier. This isn't your business. Daniel's gaze flicked toward me. It became my business when you stopped showing up. That was it. Adrian lunged forward. Not violent. Not attacking. Just grabbing my wrist. Instinctive. Possessive. Wrong. Gasped. Security stepped in immediately. Daniel moved faster. He didn't shove Adrian. He didn't punch him. He removed his hand. Clean. Controlled. Final. Do not touch him. Adrian looked around then. At the stairs. At the phones. At the security closing in. And for the first time, he saw it. He wasn't the powerful alpha in the room. He was the unstable X. Security escorted him toward the exit. He didn't fight, but he didn't stop looking at me either. You still love me, he shouted as they dragged him back. The room went silent again. I stepped forward. Clear voice. No tremble. Yes. Gasps again. Adrian froze. Hope flared across his face. I continued. I loved you. Past tense. And that tiny shift crushed him. But I will never choose someone who made me beg for dignity. Dead quiet. Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't touch me. He let me own it. Adrian's expression collapsed. Not anger. Not rage. Collapse. You can't erase me, he whispered. I met his eyes. I don't need to. Security guided him out. This time, he didn't resist. When the doors closed, the silence lingered. Then Daniel's mother spoke quietly behind me. Well, she sipped her drink. That answers that. Soft laughter. Tension breaking. Daniel leaned slightly closer. Are you all right? I nodded. Better than I've been in months. He didn't kiss me. Didn't dramatize. He just stood there with me. Steady. Certain. Present. And that steadiness felt louder than Adrian's shouting ever did. Later that evening, I received a single message from Adrian. I ruined it, didn't I? I stared at the screen, then typed back one sentence. You already did. No block, no long speech, just truth. That night, as Daniel helped install the baby's new monitor, our son fell asleep easily, peacefully. Daniel adjusted the blanket gently. You don't have to choose anything today, he said quietly. I looked at him, at the calm, at the difference. I already did, I replied. He didn't smile arrogantly. He didn't celebrate. He simply nodded, because real security doesn't need applause. Adrian thought divorce meant control. He thought co-parenting meant proximity. He thought love meant possession. He was wrong. Love is consistency, and consistency had chosen someone else.